Now we come to the first little more interesting task here. The one with a special check for the order. So say public void invokes render after update. We have the test game set up, we have the test handler set up, we have the test timer set up, we have the UET set up. So one thing I want to do here is, again, when test game is running, then return true false. I want to run my unit under test. Of course, I forgot the Mockito suffix here. I want to run the unit under test, and then I want to use something from Mockito which is called inOrder. So with inOrder I can check that invocations occurred in a certain order. So I'm going to check inOrder calls on test game, assign that to a local variable which is going to be called inOrder. No, inOrder. And now on inOrder, I can say verify that test game update with any parameter, and inOrder verify test game render. So this piece here is going to check that the update call is actually occurring before the render call. This test is running. To make sure this is really doing what we want, I'm going to change the order of the calls and see that both tests are now failing, which is exactly what we expected. So I'm going to revert that change. Tests are running again. This works. I can get rid of this whole bunch of tests here. Boop, just like that. Remove the suffix, still re-execute the test. This is working. Next one, test public void passes input to update Mockito. We have the test set up, the test handler set up, the test timer set up, the unit under test set up. We're concerned about the test input. So let's say we have a new test input here, which is our test input. And when the test input handler get current input is invoked, then we want to return the test input. And of course, we want to, as always, give answers to is running with our more or less default true false. UT run and verify test game dot update with the test input. That's also quite nifty shortcut here. I can just pass the value I want to check for in here, and Mockito will automatically check if these match. Since I don't have equals defined on the test input, this just works like that. Re-executing the tests, test work, so I can get rid of this bunch here and get rid of the suffix and re-execute the test real quick. Still working, next test. Test public void should skip update if loop is too fast. Mockito. Now this is the tests that made me pull the setup methods back into the single test method. So I hope I will get away with it, but I'm pretty confident. Let's say when test game is running, then return true and false. That's the same setup we have down here. And when test timer get current time, then return 0.1. comma 1. Sorry. That should be enough. Unit under test run. And verify that test game had never an invocation on update with any parameter value, but test game had, I'm going to make the times explicit here to show the difference between the update and the render call, although ×1 would be the default value. This is running, so I can remove this code and remove the suffix. Still running. So on to our last test. Public void. Where's this should anyways? Let's get rid of that. Does additional update if loop is too slow. We have the test game. We will set the answers to is running, like almost always, to true false. Just even think about pulling that to the before method and overwriting it where we want to have something else. But for now, I'm going to stay with this variant, and I want to set the test timer, get current time to 0 2 times frame duration. ut.run and verify that test game ×2 the update call with any value, and verify test game ×1 the call to render, which, oh, I forgot the suffix, which actually makes me think of another test we've missed, which occurred to me because now I'm checking here explicitly for the parameter value to update. Actually, if I'm going to repeat the poll to, or the call to update, I'm currently polling the input every time, I think, which should not be the case. I have to note that down, make a mental mark, and come back to that later. For now, this is the test as we had it before, so I execute it, it's working, so I can get rid of this test thing here and have the test replaced. So let's have a look. This thing here should no longer be used. References in project, none. That's nice, so I can get rid of this code. The test input handler should be the same. References, even a workspace, no. It was not what I wanted to do. References in project, none, so I can get rid of that. Test input, I'm using that. And the last thing, test game, I'm not using the test game anymore, so I can get rid of this. Re-execute the tests, they're still all working. They got much shorter. I removed all the manual mock implementation, and I think the tests are even better to read. So I think this time it was worth to introduce a mocking framework here. Not because the mocking framework can do things we can't do. We were able to implement all the tests, but just because some of the boilerplate that I had to implement myself is now handled by the mocking framework and is out of the way for the readability of our tests.